I can't believe it was 50 years ago that you started.
More often than not, by somebody very close to them.
Whispers from the palace hint at a confrontation no one expected. Alleged tensions between Queen Camilla and Catherine, Princess of Wales, may have pushed King Charles to his breaking point. What really happened behind those royal doors? Stay tuned for the shocking details, and don't forget to subscribe for more. What if one ordinary meeting inside the palace suddenly turned into the most talked about moment of the year? That's exactly what insiders are whispering about right now. According to multiple palace watchers, a routine gathering in one of the grandest rooms of the royal residence took a turn that no one, least of all the seasoned staff, could have predicted. The Red Room, normally a symbol of calm elegance with its polished mahogany table and perfectly arranged seating, reportedly became the stage for a tense confrontation. Eyewitnesses describe how the atmosphere changed in an instant. The air, once filled with the quiet hum of professional conversation, grew heavy and still, as if the walls themselves sensed what was about to unfold. People who have served the royal household for years say they had never felt a silence quite like it. Then came the moment that everyone present will remember. Queen Camilla is said to have entered with unusual urgency, her steps firm, her gaze fixed straight ahead. Without waiting for formalities, she reportedly directed her attention toward Catherine, the Princess of Wales. The sudden shift in energy was so strong that even seasoned aides trained to remain composed under pressure later admitted their hearts raced. Those who were there speak of a sudden crack in the carefully maintained calm, like a ripple breaking the surface of a still lake. Something big was about to happen, and everyone knew it. Hours before that tense meeting, subtle hints suggested something was off inside the palace. Staff who normally worked with quiet confidence seemed distracted, their smiles polite but strained. Footmen hurried through the hallways with unusually tight expressions, and conversations stopped the moment Catherine approached. Catherine, known for her calm presence and keen intuition, reportedly felt the shift immediately. As she moved through the grand corridors, each one gleaming with polished wood and the soft glow of chandeliers, she noticed that the usual easy rhythm was missing. A young housemaid, when asked if preparations for the evening's reception were on track, gave a rushed assurance that felt rehearsed rather than relaxed. It wasn't just one encounter. Whispers floated from service rooms and doorways, but each time Catherine drew near, voices fell silent. A laugh would suddenly die out. A sentence would trail off mid-word. To most people, these might have seemed like harmless coincidences, but Catherine has spent years reading subtle signals in a world where unspoken meaning is everything. She could sense a quiet tension running beneath the palace's polished surface, like a stream of electricity building before a storm. Still, she stayed composed. Her role demands grace under scrutiny, and she chose to carry on as if nothing were amiss. Yet deep down, she must have known something was brewing. The stillness of the ancient walls, the quick glances of the staff, and the oddly heavy air all hinted that the day would not remain ordinary for long. As the hour for the key meeting approached, the Red Room stood ready like a set prepared for a flawless performance. The long mahogany table gleamed under crystal chandeliers, briefing papers neatly aligned before every seat. Normally, this would have been a quiet moment of order and tradition, a routine gathering to finalize details for the evening's grand event. But that calm didn't last. Catherine, seated at the head of the table, listened carefully as the master of the household reviewed the schedule. Around her, senior aides nodded politely, pens poised, their expressions neutral. Yet beneath the polished surface, something unseen seemed to vibrate. Those present later described it as a charge in the air, a tension that didn't belong in such a formal setting. Then the door opened sharply. Queen Camilla entered with a pace and presence that immediately commanded attention. Even those accustomed to her strong personality felt the difference. Her steps across the thick carpet were quick and deliberate, and her gaze, directed squarely at Catherine, cut through the room like a sudden gust of cold air. She didn't wait for the master of the household to finish speaking. She didn't even acknowledge him. Instead, she went straight to the point with a remark that observers called both subtle and stinging. Camilla questioned a small change Catherine had approved to the seating plan, framing it as an unnecessary break with tradition. Catherine responded with quiet courtesy, explaining that the change was meant only to make guests more comfortable. Her calm words, however, didn't diffuse the moment. If anything, they added fuel to the tension. Those in the room describe a sudden, almost electric silence. What began as a single sharp comment was on the edge of becoming something far more dramatic, something no one there would ever forget. What happened next is what palace insiders say turned an uneasy exchange into an unforgettable scene. As the quiet stretched, Queen Camilla's voice reportedly rose, shedding any trace of subtlety. The polite edge of her earlier comment gave way to something sharper, frustration that had been building for years, according to those who later spoke about the moment. She is said to have accused Catherine of always positioning herself to be at the center of attention, questioning whether the Princess of Wales was too focused on appearances. Those words hung heavy in the air. Staff members, trained to remain invisible during difficult moments, froze in place. Some held their breath, others lowered their eyes to the gleaming table. It was as if the entire room had been placed under a spell. Then, according to witnesses, came the movement that shocked everyone. Camilla allegedly reached toward Catherine and gave a firm shove on her shoulder, just enough to push her back into her chair as Catherine began to rise. The sound of that sudden contact wasn't loud, but the meaning was deafening. Gasps rippled through the room. One aide later described it as a collective intake of air that seemed to echo off the ornate walls. No one spoke. No one moved. The Red Room, normally a place of calm planning, felt like it had turned into a storm's eye. Catherine, by all accounts, stayed astonishingly composed. Her breath quickened, but she did not retaliate. She simply sat still, her eyes steady, allowing silence to speak louder than any words could. In that moment, her quiet strength became its own kind of statement, one that staff members would remember long after they left the room. The heavy silence after Queen Camilla's alleged shove didn't last long. The door opened again, and King Charles entered the Red Room. Normally, his arrival brings a calm, steadying presence. He is known for quickly reading a room and setting a measured tone. But on this day, those closest to him say he sensed immediately that something was very wrong. From the moment he stepped inside, the energy felt different. The staff, usually confident and quietly professional, looked pale and unsettled. Their eyes darted between the Queen and the Princess of Wales. Even without words, Charles could feel the tension like a wall of cold air. Witnesses recall how his gaze moved sharply across the table. He saw Camilla standing rigid, her expression still heated. He saw Catherine sitting upright, composed but clearly shaken. It didn't take long for him to understand that the quiet in the room wasn't respectful silence. It was the quiet of something serious that had just happened. And then the unexpected occurred. Instead of his usual measured tone, King Charles reportedly spoke with an edge that startled everyone present. His voice, normally calm and deliberate, came out sharp and commanding as he demanded to know what had taken place. The words weren't shouted at first, but they carried a force that cut through the thick air. Camilla tried to explain, saying she was making a point that needed to be made, but that only seemed to deepen his frustration. Observers say his voice grew louder, stronger, almost unrecognizable to those who know him best. He turned from Camilla to Catherine, questioning how such a scene could happen under his watch, his words tumbling out with urgency. Those present describe this as a rare and startling moment when the monarch, known for years of preparation and self-control, let raw emotions surface. It wasn't just a raised voice, it was a sudden crack in the carefully built image of steady leadership, a moment that would stay with everyone in the room long after the echoes faded. When the meeting finally ended, the Red Room emptied in heavy silence. Staff members walked out with footsteps that sounded louder than usual on the polished stone floors, as if the building itself were listening. Nobody dared to speak while near the scene of the confrontation. But beyond those doors, the hush began to break. In the winding service corridors and quiet side rooms, whispered conversations slowly started to surface. At first, it was just a few soft exchanges between longtime aides, quick glances, and almost inaudible words. Before long, though, the story was quietly threading its way through the palace like an invisible current. Some staff members reportedly felt an immediate sympathy for Catherine. They admired the way she remained calm and dignified, despite what had unfolded in full view. "That's what true strength looks like," one attendant is said to have confided to a colleague. For them, Catherine's silence wasn't weakness. It was steady leadership, a sign of someone prepared to carry the weight of the crown one day. A smaller, more cautious group is believed to have viewed Queen Camilla differently. They suggested that her sharp reaction might have come from long-standing frustrations and years of feeling scrutinized. These quieter voices did not excuse what happened, but wondered if it revealed deeper pressures that few outside the royal circle could truly understand. And then there was the third, most anxious group, those who served the king directly. They weren't taking sides. Instead, they worried about what Charles's visible loss of composure might mean for the monarchy itself. His raised voice, his rapid questions, the emotion that cracked through his carefully built image, these details unsettled them more than anything else. By evening, small signals of shifting loyalty could be seen everywhere. A sideways glance here, a hesitant nod there. People were already weighing what the day's events might mean for their own roles and for the delicate balance of the royal household. Even within walls that have held centuries of secrets, this incident felt different, impossible to bury and certain to shape the conversations that followed. While whispers swirled through the palace, Catherine remained strikingly composed. Those who know her best say this calm wasn't accidental. It was a choice shaped by years of life under constant attention. After leaving the Red Room, she returned to her private quarters with the same poised walk she had entered with. To a casual observer, she might have seemed untouched by the confrontation, but those closest to her believe the moment weighed heavily beneath the surface. Catherine has long understood that every expression, every word, and even every pause is noticed and remembered. In that instant when Queen Camilla's remarks and gestures could have provoked a sharp reply, she instead let silence do the talking. Supporters describe it as the mark of a future queen, strength not in volume but in restraint. Many inside the palace quietly admired how she protected the monarchy's dignity. One senior aide reportedly said, "She chose to preserve the crown's image rather than defend herself in anger." That takes incredible discipline. To them, her measured silence wasn't retreat, it was strategy. Yet there were others who saw her calm differently. A few voices suggested that not speaking might be misunderstood as hesitation or lack of resolve, particularly in a setting where power dynamics can shift with a single gesture. Still, Catherine seemed unmoved by those interpretations. Her focus, as always, remained on the bigger picture, her role as a mother, a wife, and a future queen consort. Instead of reacting in the heat of the moment, she turned inward, trusting that time and her actions would speak louder than any immediate words. It was this quiet strength, steady, deliberate, and deeply rooted, that soon became the central point of admiration for many both inside and outside the palace. And as the day unfolded, that strength would take on even greater significance in the hours that followed. While Catherine chose measured calm, Prince William's response was very different. According to those close to the couple, he was deeply shaken and fiercely protective when he learned what had unfolded in the Red Room. The first emotion he reportedly felt was immediate concern for his wife. He had seen her handle challenging moments with remarkable grace before, but hearing of an alleged physical shove and a tense verbal clash struck a different chord. Friends say his worry quickly shifted to frustration, first at the situation, then at how his father, King Charles, had reacted in the heat of the moment. William has worked hard to present a modern, balanced vision for the monarchy. For him, the day's events were more than a family disagreement. They seemed to threaten the very stability he and Catherine have tried to nurture for years. Sources close to the couple describe him as volcanic inside, while remaining outwardly controlled, a skill he has inherited from years of public life. When the two were finally alone, William reportedly encouraged Catherine to share her feelings, gently pressing for details. Yet she remained quiet, choosing to keep her emotions shielded behind the same calm she displayed in the meeting. To William, this quiet was both admirable and heartbreaking. He understood it as her way of staying strong, but he also sensed the private strain it carried. This difference in their immediate reactions created a complex layer in their usually united approach. William wanted to protect and defend. Catherine wanted to preserve dignity and distance. Their bond remained solid, but insiders say the evening carried an unmistakable weight, a recognition that the choices they made in those private hours might shape how the public and the palace would view them for years to come. It was clear to many close observers that the day had drawn an invisible line. William, determined to guard his family's honor, and Catherine, steadfast in her belief that restraint could speak louder than confrontation. How these two approaches would blend in the days ahead became another question hanging quietly over the palace. Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear how you see the path ahead. And if you want to follow every twist and new development in this unfolding royal story, click on the next video waiting on your screen. The conversation is only just beginning, and the next chapter could be even more surprising than anyone expects.